Okay, it is the 11th of October 2019, and it is time for another installment of Breaking Down Breaking Bad. Oh yeah, many years ago I started a series called Breaking Down Breaking Bad, where I was going to go through all of the Breaking Bad series, and I got about 4 or 5 episodes in and never continued it, surprise surprise. And now, 2019, I'm sat here about to watch El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. So El Camino is on Netflix, and I was so excited for today. I was gonna watch it when it came out 8 a.m. this morning, but I thought, I'm gonna wait till the evening. It's more of a night movie kind of thing, and I have good memories of watching Breaking Bad in the small hours of the morning. I did a movie vlog / TV episode vlog many years ago now in Norway on the episode 4 Days Out from season 2, which is one of my favorite episodes of Breaking Bad, and that was kind of like a nice kind of night movie episode experience thing. And so yeah, it felt right to watch this in the evening. It's the first thing when I load up Netflix, so of course I'm going to get right into it. I have a lot of questions, and I'm not sure if there are answers that I was ever really expecting. I have more questions as to where they're going to take this, who's going to appear, how many cameos are we going to see. Obviously we saw in the first teaser that Skinny Pete is going to be in the movie. Mike is going to be in the movie. Jonathan Banks confirmed at the Emmys that he has a role in this. I'm sure it has to be a flashback. I'm wondering if there's going to be any more Breaking Bad cameos. Will we see Walter White? Fingers crossed. I really hope we don't. I really think they should leave it on that last shot of him in that lab. That's where we leave Walter White. I hope they don't lean into that. But I'm happy to be proved wrong if they find a way to do it that really works. The first teaser I was a little bit trepidatious about, or the second teaser where we saw Jesse in the car the night of his escape. You hear on the radio, 8 dead, gunfire shot. We hear the police sirens, and Jesse is clean shaven with a skinhead and no beard. And I thought, how could they mess that up? So it's a simple continuity, right? Obviously that's not what it appears, and that teaser was kind of fiddled around with, because then we got the full-length trailer and saw that he had the long hair or long for Jesse, and the beard from the end of the final episode of Breaking Bad, and he goes to Skinny Pete's and Badger for help. That's all we know. There's really, in the wake of his dramatic escape from captivity, Jesse must come to terms with his past in order to forge some kind of future. I remember when they were reading the script, and I'm stressing out about talking so much now because my pizza is getting colder by the second, but I remember the behind-the-scenes featurette of Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul reading the finale, the final episode for Lena of Breaking Bad. And Bryan Cranston is reading the directions, and he's like, Jesse smashes through the gate of the facility, bang, and off he goes. Where to, who knows? I like to think of it as something better or something like that. And it was really eloquently written in the script, even though that's a detail you'd never see in the show. And I kind of like it like that, so I'm not sure if it's worth coming back to this, but Vince Gilligan hasn't really let me down ever. And I'm really excited that he is the director of this movie as well. I think that's a really interesting. I don't think he's ever directed a movie before. I might be mistaken there, but from episode 1 of Breaking Bad through maybe over 100 episodes of television now with Better Call Saul, the 4 now 5 seasons next year. It's just been a consistently incredible ride. So I hope this isn't a bump in the road, but I am very excited. So let's get stuck into it. All right, so here's my dinner. I thought I'd go all out for this. I think the question isn't so much what happened to Jesse Pinkman, it's will Luke be in a food coma by the end of this? So I did get some Domino's cookies. It's so dangerous when there's a Domino's within walking distance. It's really, really dangerous. And we have a medium pepperoni pizza. Let's see if it's still... Yeah, it's still good. It's still good. Okay, with a stuffed crust, and then I got a nice bottle of Virgil's black cherry cream soda. Fantastic. Nice ice cold bottle of water, and some milk to go with the cookies. And of course, I'm going to drizzle the pepperoni pizza in HP sauce. Relax, I'm just kidding. I had that from last night. Here we go. El Camino. I'll see you on the other side. Bitch. Okay, I'm done with El Camino. Let's get nice and comfortable here and talk this thing through, shall we? So, there we go. That was a film. That was definitely a film. What would you call it? The unofficial 63rd episode of Breaking Bad in extended form. So we follow Jesse as he leaves the facility at the end of Breaking Bad, and we follow him to Skinny Pete and Badger's house, and he gets help from them, and then he attempts to find some money so that he can get fixed, given a new identity, and sent off to a different location. Spoilers, I mean, if you're watching this video, you've more than likely seen El Camino, you're more than likely a Breaking Bad fan, so who are we kidding? He's going to Alaska. I don't know if that was that brought up before, or was that Nebraska, when Saul was leaving? Isn't that where he went and he became, was it Gene in Better Call Saul? Anyway, the beginning of the film opens with a cameo from Mike, and it's great to see Mike and Jesse together again, and something that I have to mention is the ages of these characters, and this is something that we've had to deal with as Breaking Bad fans for quite a few years now, as, you know, Mike and Gus and Saul, Jimmy, you know, are getting progressively and noticeably older as their characters are supposed to be younger. Because, of course, Better Call Saul is a prequel show. So if we were to watch everything chronologically, it's, you know, you're going to have like a fairly old looking Mike and Gus, and then suddenly they're about 10 years younger when you get to Breaking Bad. It's just one of those things, and I'm glad they didn't go down the route of, you know, the digital de-aging and stuff like that. And even in the final season of Breaking Bad, when we saw the flashback to Walt and Jesse in the RV, which we'll get back to a little bit later on, and, you know, I think that, I don't know if Aaron Paul necessarily put on weight, but like, it's like his head got bigger. I don't know what it is. There's something about the shape of his head that seemed to change. I guess it must be putting on a bit of weight around the cheeks or something. It's just a rounder looking, you know, cranium. And so in that flashback to the RV, it doesn't look like season 1, season 2 Jesse. It looks like season 5 Jesse dressed up and to look like, you know. So you have to kind of, so I guess even back then in season 5 of Breaking Bad, we've kind of been introduced to this idea of actors playing characters a lot younger than they are, and younger than they were at the time of these kind of flashback, you know. So you know what I'm talking about. I'm wrapping myself up in words now. So there's some of that in here. We have Todd playing a fairly significant part in the first half of the film, Jesse Plemons, and he has definitely gained a fair bit of weight since then. So that's something you just have to deal with, I think, you know, and it's fine. I saw someone talking about that on Twitter, saying like, well, he doesn't look like he used to. It's like, well, no, he's aged 5 years, and, you know, his body's changed, and, you know, just have to go with it, really. I will say Jesse Plemons did a great job as Todd in this film. It's such an unsettling, even keel of emotion to Todd. You know, it's just everything is completely down the line. You know, like that scene when Jesse is taken to Todd's apartment and he sees this he's killed his maid, basically, his housekeeper. And Todd is just like, well, you know, nice lady, you know. And Jesse's like, what did she ever do to you? He's like, oh, nothing. No, she's great. You know, she was as honest as the day is long. And Jesse's like, well, what, you know, you can't understand this. And, you know, Todd is just a complete fucking sociopath. And I think Jesse Plemons plays that beautifully in that scene when he's singing along to that song while they're driving down the highway with the body in the back. I mean, that's pure Breaking Bad dark humor to me. There's something quite funny and, you know, unnerving about that. And I thought that the scene when Jesse had the chance to shoot Todd and he just didn't. He was so beaten down, and just when Todd is trying to be nice to Jesse, and it's this sense of this kindness coming out, and Jesse knows that it's manufactured, but even still it's something that, you know, makes him second guess what he's going to do. Like, there's a very loaded emotional moment there for Jesse, and Aaron Paul played it fantastically well. You know, the emotion that comes out there, it's really great. And so again, I don't know where I'm going with this review really, but, you know, we opened up with that Mike scene, and, you know, him kind of suggesting to Jesse that when you get out Alaska, if I was you, Alaska would be the place I'd go to. But I also like that Jesse says, "What would you do?" And Mike's like, "No, I'm not you. You do what you do." And he's like, "No, I want to know what you would do." So Mike says Alaska would be my pick. And Jesse's like, "Yeah, get away from it all." And Mike says something to the effect of, "No, it doesn't work like that. You don't ever fully get away from that. In fact, I want to know what that line is, because it was a really great line." So I'm just going to run the film again while I talk about something else, and I'll get the exact line up on screen so I want to quote it, because I think that Vince Gilligan did a great job with the script, and of course directing this thing as well. Now, the main bulk of the first half of the film is about Jesse finding Todd's money, which he was the whole kind of reason that he killed his housekeeper, because she found his money. So he talks to Jesse about how, well, I have an idea, but it would take some engineering. So we know that there's money hidden in the house. And so Jesse goes back, and just the act of going back to Todd's house and trying to get inside, and then finally getting inside, and then trying to find it, and conversation style ripping the place apart. And just as he finds the money, these two cops show up, and that whole sequence with the cops was so tense. I mean, the shot when Jesse with the gun just emerges from underneath the mattress is an amazing shot. And the tension, and then when you realize they're not cops, and it's like, oh my god, like I loved how it just kept building the tension up and wondering what was going to happen. And I was talking to a friend of mine, he really wasn't enthused with this film, and I can see why. It's not a traditional film, I don't think. You really need to be a Breaking Bad fan, or at least to have seen everything else. This is not so much a standalone movie as it is an extended 2-hour coda to the entire series, and for Jesse. It's Jesse's closure. That's what this film is. And so, I'm just looking at the thing now so I can get the line that Mike said. Anyway, right, so I get distracted now. I don't want to watch it again almost, even though it's quite a slow burner, it's... But I thought that as a coda, as a kind of closure piece for Jesse, there's certainly a thread that you can tie from this to the final episode of Breaking Bad for Walt, where he was kind of tying up loose ends, going to Gretchen and Elliot, going to see Skylar, going to get one last glimpse at his son, Walt Jr., going to kind of see his daughter one last time, kind of tying all these loose ends up and, saving Jesse if he can. He gets all those things done, and we don't really get that from Jesse in the final few episodes of Breaking Bad. He's kind of MIA, and then we only see the results of what happened to him and his eventual kind of escape. Right, so Jesse says, put things right, and Mike says, no, sorry kid, that's the one thing you can never do. Oh, the look on his face as well almost makes me tear up, man. It's such a loaded, Mike, and Better Call Saul has really flashed out Mike so much more that I really feel that when I see Mike say that. That's the one thing you can never do, is put things right. They've gone too far for that. All they can do and all they can hope for is to find some quasi solace in their life, and that's what this film is about. And as I was saying, a friend of mine wasn't too enthused with this because he felt like the film begins with Jesse free and ends with Jesse free. And I argued that, it opens with him being free in one sense, but he's not free in the other. He's free from that facility, he's free from that hell and that captivity and the torment and the torture. But he ain't, he's not home free, he's not home and dry just yet. He has to get out of Albuquerque, he has to get out of New Mexico, he has to find a way to get some, life. And I remember when the finale aired and people were talking about what happened, what would Jesse do, and we imagined that he would go off to Alaska or some such place, and he would, Nebraska, was Nebraska brought up? Leave it in the comments if anyone remembers, because I haven't watched, Breaking Bad fully and properly for quite a while. I feel like Nebraska or Alaska or both were brought up near the end, but people were talking about, Jesse kind of visiting the Hoover guy and kind of getting a new identity, but where would he get the money from that? People theorized that Jesse would go and get Walt's money and so on. That wasn't the case. It was Jesse's money. Jesse's money, Todd's money. I'll leave that one in for free. It was Todd's money that Jesse was going after, and I almost see that as a kind of, he wanted to take the money from Todd more than Walt. Or then again, did he know where Walt's money was? I don't know. But regardless, Oh, and I forgot to mention at the beginning also, he goes to Skinny Pete and Badger. And I loved that sequence because these guys have been through a lot together and they just unconditionally help him, and they've all done shady shit, Jesse a lot more so than Skinny Pete and fucking Badger, but, they've all done shit and, none of them are kind of squeaky clean by any stretch. But there was something oddly moving about how ready they were to do whatever it took to help Jesse. Actually, that scene from the teaser when Skinny Pete's getting interviewed by the police was not in the movie. That's really interesting. But he and I love that because, well, El Camino, right? I assumed that Jesse would be in that car for the whole movie. He isn't. He dumps it in the first 20 minutes. It's kind of a fun little thing there where and I love the beat where Skinny Pete's like, look, Jesse, you take this car. Badger will take my car and you go and we'll just leave the car here. The cops know it's here anyway. I'll just say that you turned up and it's my car now. And instead of hiding it out the back, Skinny Pete just parks it right out in front, right in front of the house. I love that, And that little moment between him and Jesse where Jesse's like, why are you doing all this for me? And Skinny Pete's like, hey, you're my hero, man. And he walks off and Jesse goes to say something else, and then he just kind of stops himself. He's still so rattled. And you really get that kind of PTSD vibe from Jesse in the first kind of half of the film, I think. He's really rattled by everything, and I still feel like for the majority of the movie that takes place in the present timeline, Jesse is a different person. I'm so glad we didn't hear him say, yeah, bitch, in this movie, in present timeline, Jesse, because it ain't him anymore. That's been beaten out of him. He has to find a new, way to live, a new way to be himself, and with that new identity, it's a completely fresh slate. And so he leaves there, he finds the money. I loved kind of, it was like the last thing, and he finally found where the money was. Then the cops come, they weren't the cops, and I loved how it all builded. And definitely, I think in the first half of the film, maybe suffers a tiny bit from the flashbacks with Todd being very lengthy. And so we're removed from the immediacy of the main plot. But it does set up, what is happening in the present plot. And I would rather have more of that stuff than less of it. I think that at no point did I feel like, oh, this is dragging. I just felt like I wanted to see more of the present timeline. I was really eager to get back to that stuff. Was so happy, like there's cameos in this film. We have the Mike cameo, we have the Jane cameo, we have the Walter cameo, and I think for me the one that really I popped for the most was the Hoover guy, Robert Forster. I love Robert Forster. He's such an amazing actor. It was awesome to see him again, reprising his character from the 5th season, the final season of Breaking Bad. And I love that scene between him and Jesse. Like, it's such a great scene, the way that first initially plays out. It's just so well written, so well performed. A little bit of a funny, twist to it towards the end of that first scene they share together, and that's kind of that's what Jesse is gunning for, and we don't know that. There's no point where at the beginning he's like, right, I need to get the money from Todd's house, I need to go to the Hoover guy, I need to get a new identity, then I'm going to Alaska. You're left in the dark about that. I mean, you can kind of see where it's going. But I wasn't entirely sure until he pulled out the phone book and he's looking for the vacuum place. I was like, he's going there. And that's why I was so glad to see Robert Forster turn up again. He's always good in whatever he does. And I loved that kind of final beat at the end when he reads the letter that Jesse is sending to Brock. And you almost wonder if they were going to veer into the sentimental where Forster was going to be like, oh, that's a beautiful letter, kid. But no, he just says, all right, seal the letter for me. I'll send it. And even when Jesse's like pleading with him, like, they kept me in a hole, he's like, tearing up and stuff, and Robert Forster's just like, do you think this sob story is really going to help? Like, he's a completely kind of cold guy, but you get the sense that Robert Forster's so good at playing this kind of hardened, kind of tough guys who have kind of the warm interior that you can kind of just sense by the look of him. Like, he can do whatever he wants to look like a cold kind of shut off guy emotionally, but you get the sense there's a good man inside Robert Forster. It's kind of hard for him to. I don't know if I've ever seen him play a fully fledged villain or anything, but when he calls the cops and Jesse runs out and he says, oh yeah, he went that way about 30 seconds ago. Tall guy, about 6'6", 6'7", got a tattoo above his eyebrow, so he's kind of helping Jesse get off the hook there. So Anyways, but I guess that might also be saving his skin as well. But you know, still, I think that there's definitely like a warmth to him that just he can't fully hide as an actor. I don't think, or maybe that wasn't the intention. I don't know. But anyway, where else do we go with this? We have the welder guy, and then we see a flashback with him and one of the other Nazis who was in Breaking Bad, and they kind of got Jesse chained up. They did a very good job with Jesse's like hair and makeup and the beard and the progression of everything in terms of how he looked at certain points in the timeline, and I think they did a great job of that. And you know, you get more of a sense of how badly he was treated at that lab, which is just horrible. Yeah, it really is. And you do grow to care for Jesse so much throughout the entirety of the series that that kind of empathy for Jesse is built in when you get to this film. So you almost don't need too much of that, but just to continue to show it, I think really just reminds you of everything that he's been through. And the welder guy, you know, was kind of there and just like placing bets on it and stuff, and you know, clearly had no empathy for Jesse in that moment, and just, you know, wasn't really caring. So I guess that was kind of a reason for Jesse to go back and try and get that money. But I love how he just walked in and said, I'm not going to try and rob you guys, I just need $1,800. And I love that part of the scene as well, where he literally has like almost $250,000 in front of Robert Forster. He's short by $1,800, and Robert Forster's just like, deal's a deal, you know, like it's the principle of it, man. And so he has to get that money, and I was fully expecting him to go in there, guns blazing, and just shoot them up. You know, at this point he's got nothing to lose, right? But it's Jesse. He doesn't want to do this. He isn't a killer. Well, he is a killer. He doesn't want to be a killer. And so I love that he went in and tried to just say, just $1,800, just give me that and I'm gone. But of course the guy, he wouldn't let it go, and we have ourselves an Old West kind of standoff. And I love how Vince Gilligan very clearly kind of just on Front Street was just like, had Jesse say, what, like the Old West? I said, yeah, like the Old West. And it's, you know, it's kind of Sergio Leone light for sure, but it was a really stressful sequence. Like I was really like, you know, holding my breath and stuff, and I was quite wrapped up in it, even though at no point did I feel like Jesse was going to end up badly by the end of this film. I don't think anyone thought that. This is a film to give Jesse closure. It would have been cruel for them to bring him back after all these years for this movie, just to put him through more shit where he ends up in a worse place than he was at the end of it. So you kind of knew he was going to get the money and he was going to get there, but it was about the unexpected journey to get to that point. And I really enjoyed the journey, and that little shootout was, you know, that was shades of the old kind of dramatic Breaking Bad bloodshed moments that we've grown used to. And so he gets that money and blows up the whole place on the way out. And I could tell they blew that fucking building up, and they had Aaron Paul in that car outside the building. So that was a really, I mean, I can tell there wasn't CGI going on there. Maybe some augmentation, but they blew that fucking warehouse up for real, like, you know, old school style. And I really appreciate that, because you can fucking tell when it's tangible, and that was really cool. And then we have the Walt cameo. Season 2 era, I think, yeah, because he still had the mustache, and then I think he grew the goatee out at the end of Season 2, and he was coughing a lot in Season 2 when they told him his tumor had been reduced by 80%, I think. So yeah, this was like RV era Walt, you know, with the cough. And yeah, like I said at the beginning of the video, I really didn't want to see Walt. Still kind of feel that way. It was great to see Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul together as Jesse and Walter White once again, one more time. But did it really need to be there? I don't think so. I feel like Jesse's closure with Walt was at the end of Breaking Bad, when they looked at each other, they shared that look, the slight nod. You know, we've been through a lot together, we really cared for each other at one point. It's gone way, way beyond that now. You know, I recognize it. You know, we had something, but it's over. And that's it. And that's the nod, and we move on. And to Walt, it was moving on to the next life, and for Jesse, it was moving on to trying to get himself out and to try and live a new life. And so I feel like the flashback to Walt was a bit kind of regressive in that sense. You know, whether you imagine that as Jesse thinking back to Walt, or us just seeing it as a kind of reminder, I did like how, I was thinking in my head, what would they do if there was a Walt cameo? And I think that in my head I was thinking it would need to be something really impactful. It would need to be something where Walt had told Jesse something really important. Not necessarily plot-wise, but just like a real nugget of wisdom that could kind of, help Jesse into kind of moving on from everything. And in a sense it is, where he's saying, well, what do you want to do, Jesse, after all this? And this is like early days, Walt and Jesse, before Walt went full cunt, before like he just did some horrific things. Before, I think even, he watched Jane die, which was bad enough in and of itself. And then, of course, when he said to Jesse, I watched Jane die. I could have saved her, but I didn't. Oh, you son of a bitch. Yeah, so like this is like season 2 era. This is when they were probably at their closest, Walt and Jesse, and you get that kind of father-son thing before it kind of disappeared. I think in season 3 and 4, where Jesse started becoming almost afraid of Walt, and it was almost like an abusive relationship where Jesse kept going back to Walt even though Walt was yeah. There's I want to go into all that stuff because I can sit here and talk about it for hours, but. That part where he says, to Jesse, you should think about a career and stuff, business, marketing, you'd be great at that sort of thing, and then he says the line where I think it's something to the effect that he looks at the RV, which is kind of representative. It's like the symbolic, icon of what they've done together in making this money and making the meth. And Walt says to Jesse, "You're really lucky. You got to do something really special before it was like near the end of your life." Meaning to Walt, it took me like, half a century to do something really special with my life. And that's kind of a loaded sentiment because you wonder, is that more special to Walt than kind of having a family and having his son? Is kind of making that meth and making all that money he could never have dreamed of before, is that more important and more special than his family? And that's where the lines start to blur, especially in season 3 and 4, when it becomes more about the kind of ego of it for Walt than it is about his family anymore. And as he admits at the end, I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. But it's kind of an honest moment at the same time where, it's the first time he's felt like he's really done something, He had all of his kind of achievements before in his, his vast skill as a kind of, what would you even call him? I'm trying to think now because he wasn't a scientist, was he? But he was a... Why am I kind of losing my kind of perception on what word to even use here? What did Walter do? Chemistry, right? But you wouldn't call him a chemist, would you? Because that's like selling. I don't know. But his incredible skill and his brain and everything that he worked on at Grey Matter, that could have been something special. Maybe it still was something special, but it was taken away from him. So anyway, I'm getting way too far into it, and I apologize. I'm really rambling at this point, but. I'm kind of jacked up about Breaking Bad and this world again, so it's kind of hard for me to not ramble on and on and on. So before I give you a 2-hour coda to this video like this film is to Breaking Bad, I guess I'll try and wrap up my thoughts. And I'm just going to throw this in there somewhere towards the end, somehow splice it into the video, that the editing is really good. I think Skip McDonald did this one, kind of, I think, veteran of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul from memory of listening to all the podcasts. Anyway, the editing is really good because we're dealing with a lot of different timelines and the way in which, I suppose that also speaks to the way the thing is constructed and written, but I loved the kind of just the beats that cut us to the next pieces, like the shot of Jesse when he's standing next to the river with Mike, and then it just smash cuts into him screaming behind the wheel of the El Camino at the end of Breaking Bad. Even when he's in the shower at Skinny Pete's, and we suddenly cut to him being hosed down when he was, kind of in captivity. Like, that was a really good moment. So there's nice little kind of linking visual match cuts to some of those changes in timelines, and I thought that was done really well. The Walt cameo, and I appreciated what they tried to do with Aaron Paul. They put the beanie hat on him to kind of hide. I think that kind of hides his age a little bit, and I was really struck when we first saw Jesse in the bath because he didn't have the scars. And I thought, okay, this is pre-current timeline, but also pre-captivity timeline. So this is like Jesse before everything. Are we going to see Walt now? And that's it. And there was a nice kind of hero shot of Walt walking out of the hotel door and they're walking together. Very nice little moment there. And you could almost imagine, like, some kind of fun music being played there, Quentin Tarantino style. This was a moment of putting these two characters back together on screen again. But I like how it was just a very simple scene of them at a diner, you know, and it plays out, you know. There's nothing too remarkable about it. And so in that sense, I do appreciate that it wasn't trying to be this big, like, oh, you know, we didn't show you like the really special important thing, the touching moment between Walt and Jesse that we never showed you before. It wasn't really about that. It was just a little nugget, you know, that could have been said between the two that, you know, wasn't necessarily essential, and now we're getting to see that kind of thing. I don't know, I kind of liked it, but I think the film could have done without it, and I think that Jesse moves on from Walt the minute he smashes through that gate at the end of Breaking Bad, and showing that near the end of here, I don't know. But then I still think that in reality, if this was a real person, if these were real events, I think Jesse would carry Walt around with him forever. I really do. They went through so much. I think it's hard to, like Mike said, you never put this stuff behind you, you know. So yeah, maybe not even. I guess maybe that's the intent. Maybe that's the intent, is to say that, you know, that relationship between the two is going to be with Jesse forever. I guess I'm kind of warming to it now that I think about it, but yeah, and I think it looked like Bryan Cranston was wearing a bald cap. You know, it looked the bald head looked a little bit off. But you know, again, I think they did do a very good job, and the most successful actually was the very, very brief Jane cameo with Jesse and Jane driving down the road. Or maybe no, I don't think that was an outtake from the show, right? No, because Kristen Ritter was credited at the end. But it seemed like that was Jesse circa, like, you know, I mean, you can kind of tell. Anyway, as far as, like, making Jesse look a little bit younger, I think that was the most successful. Maybe it was, like, the really baggy, like, super, like, extra large hoodie he had on, which, you know, was just, like, ridiculous and felt very fitting to Jesse around that time. I guess around season 3, 4, he started wearing more appropriately fitting clothes and stuff, like the leather jacket and things. Anyway. So, the final moment, we see Jesse driving off, and we get the closure. One last thing, the closure with his parents. I really appreciated that we got to see his parents, and that he called them, and in a way he was kind of like, you know, getting them out of the house so he could get the guns, but he gained closure with his parents. There's no going back once he leaves Albuquerque. Like, he's done. He has to have another life. It's a completely clean slate, and speaking to his parents would just jeopardize everything. So when he calls them, which in a way is just to get them out of the house to serve his own means, he also uses that opportunity to absolve them of their guilt about him, you know. And it's a complicated relationship between Jesse and his parents, and I don't think they're like bad people, but I don't think that they did their best either. But Jesse does say to them, "You did your best. I want you to know that, you know, and everything that I did was on me." And there's a lot of truth to that as well, I think. So yeah, I think it's a case of neither being right or wrong. It's all in shades, I think. But I loved that really moved me, that he basically let his parents go, and let him go, I think, which is really sad. But you know, and then of course the letter that he wrote to Brock, and we can only imagine what that was. But I think that needed a bit of closure as well. So really, this film is just tying up loose ends and wrapping it up in a neat little kind of fun thriller, I think. There's some really kind of tense sequences, and Jesse on the run, like that scene when he's driving initially away from Skinny Pete's house, and he pulls over because there's this police kind of like, you know, it's a convoy going down the street, and he's there, you know, his car, and they're all driving past, and, you know, so it's, yeah, I loved it. I really did love it, and I'm seeing some mixed stuff online. People, you know, not too fond of it, saying it's pretty good, but you know, a little bit mixed. But then there's people who think it's really, really good as well. So I'm definitely on like the higher end. I really loved this, actually. Yeah, like I said, I already said that I loved it. As a big Breaking Bad fan, it was going to be hard for it to disappoint. I think it maybe veers into fan service a little bit, but I'm a fan, damn it, and I'm here to be serviced. I think that, you know, I think really it was the 10th anniversary of Breaking Bad, and Vince Gilligan wanted to get the band back together, and he got the band back together, and I'm sure they had a blast doing it, and they told a pretty good movie. And you know, among that, I think it's just a lovely coda to the whole story. Now you got to wonder, will we see Jesse or Walt in Better Call Saul? I kind of hope not, because they've talked about it for a couple of years now, like saying, well, Mort and Jesse may show up sooner or later. I mean, you know, we're getting closer to Breaking Bad, and I think this is the better way to do it. I wouldn't want to see them just kind of casually in the background of Better Call Saul. I think you leave those two characters alone now. They've got a good where they're going. I'm far more invested at this point in Jimmy and Kim. You know, that's kind of like, I can't wait to see where that goes, and obviously Mike too, but yeah, we're getting season 5 of Better Call Saul next year. Cannot wait for that. And I hope they wrap that up soon. Apparently, from what I've heard, they might be doing a 6th and final season. So I really don't want them to kind of let that go past its kind of expiry date either. And the way they title it a Breaking Bad movie, it makes you wonder if they would do a sequel. Not to this story, but like, you know, a Breaking Bad movie. It makes you think of a Star Wars story. You know, like an anthology film or something. So that would be intriguing, but I really like, just leave it here. I think it's very well done. And Mark Hamill, who I'm a big fan of, has tweeted about this film. He went to the premiere and he said that, I think he said something like, there's no exaggeration to say that I didn't want this film to end. And I kind of agree. Like, I was really sad when the credits rolled, because I just love, not even so much this film as a film, but just the world. And it's not even a world, I don't know, it's just there's a sensibility to the way that Vince Gilligan and the vast team behind Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and now this movie El Camino, the way they tell stories both visually, I mean, that's kind of, that visual flair is there, where there's some really cool shots, but it's never overbearing, it's never trying to be gimmicky. You know, like even little things where he's searching through Todd's apartment and the camera's kind of spinning on the side very slightly. I just really cool things, but it never goes into the realm of being too gimmicky. And you know, nice music, kind of songs sparsely used here and there, and yeah, some really great cinematography as always, as you can always expect from the kind of Breaking Bad canon, I suppose. So that was all in keeping. It all felt very in line with everything else that had come before it. And so I think that's where we end this video. So let me know your thoughts down below, what you thought of El Camino. That was me breaking down a Breaking Bad movie, El Camino. So great to see Aaron Paul back again. He gives a great performance in this film. It's to be expected, really. You know, it really is. But you know, he carries the whole thing because it's him. You know, it could very well be called Jesse. But I like that it was called El Camino. That's a kind of a cool title. I like it. And yeah, the last shot is him driving off into Alaska, and I loved how it was kind of like this music was playing, and we had that last scene with Jane, you know, where she's basically saying like, you make your own kind of, you know, life basically. Because anyway, I won't go into that whole little scene, but it was very nice. And then we see the shot of the car, and then we cut to a close up of Jesse behind the wheel. Complete contrast with the last shot we saw of him in Breaking Bad, where he's screaming, and they revisited that at the beginning of the movie, him screaming, and there's like, you know, kind of flash cuts of him screaming in the car, and that was really impactful and brought us right back into the very ending of Breaking Bad. But now we see him, you know, with, you know, clean shaven, you know, looking fresher, with a bright future. Literally, it's a bright day, it's not dark, you know, it's a complete contrast, almost the same kind of shot, and now there's a slight smile on his face that, I can breathe, I've got another shot at this. And it all goes silent, and it gives you a few seconds to live with that, and then we cut to credits. And I think that this movie has a wonderful kind of irony to it, in the sense that in the very first season of Breaking Bad, Jesse, as a character, was supposed to get killed off. And the very end of Breaking Bad ended up being a 2-hour movie dedicated to the character. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I literally had finished editing this video, and I was literally on the box where I was about to hit render, and I flickered over onto Twitter and saw the announcement that Robert Forster has passed away. And I don't often get hit hard by celebrity deaths, not to say that it isn't sad, but you know, you don't really know the person, and if it's someone who I've invested so much time in enjoying their performances in films and throughout my entire life, let's say, Robin Williams or Carrie Fisher, then it does kind of hit me hard. But Robert Forster's someone who I don't have a huge familiarity with, but I have such a respect for him as an actor, which seems like a really wanky thing to say, but I mean, I love him in Jackie Brown. That's one of my favorite performances ever, probably. I loved him in the new Twin Peaks, Twin Peaks: The Return. I loved him in Breaking Bad. And the day that El Camino is released, I don't know when, if he died today or over the weekend. I'm not sure exactly what the timing is, but to have that be announced today was really strange and unsettling. The same thing happened last year. I watched a film called Still Walking, and Japanese actress Kirin Kiki was brilliant in that film. And then that week it was announced that she passed away. There's always a weird feeling when you see a film, especially a film that is their last performance or one of their last performances. And God, he was so good in El Camino. I mean, I was talking about him earlier in the review. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of Robert Forster, and I've loved hearing him on interviews and podcasts. Such a nice guy, such a humble, great actor, who sadly passed away at 78. I mean, 78, it's an age, and he lived a very full life and had an incredibly prolific career, but it's just really sad. And so I wanted to just say kind of, rest in peace, Robert Forster. Brilliant actor who I'm going to go on to enjoy many more times in films and seek out some of his earlier works as well. And so, shout out to Robert Forster. Fucking great actor. And, rest in peace.